Good day to everyone. Welcome to our podcast for today. This podcast is named Andre and Marga's Literature Podcast. Kamusta ka naman dyan, Marga?
Yes, hello, Jalen. Okay naman ako. Medyo naboboard dito, pero buti na lang may podcast tayo. Ikaw?
Same sentiments naman talaga.
Mm. So, ang topic natin for today ay Weng Cahilla's children's book entitled si Kian.
Actually, nabasa ko na tong book na to, Marga. So this is about the story of Kian de los Santos. He was murdered or gunned down by three policemen in Caloocan
Mm-mm.
for suspicion of possession of drugs. So to cut this short, or the TLDR, is that in the end, yung tatlong policemen nga was found guilty by the court for murdering De Los Santos. However, the other allegation, which was planting evidence, or rather planting drugs and firearms to use as their excuse, was they were found not guilty.
I see.
Yes. So our show will be divided into two segments. The first segment would talk about the text itself, their art style, the writing style, and the actual content. So for our first listener, we have Piolo.
Hello. Good evening po, Jalen and Marga, and to the listeners. Okay. I really like yung art style of the picture book. Yung light, toned down watercolor style, and it's yung flowy aspect, kumbaga. And ang galing niya for the child to easily connect to the concept of the dream. And di ba makikita natin that this is central to the story so that the readers can relate to Kian's character. Yung dream ni Kian to be a policeman, or yung mga daydream niya with his friend dun sa hospital, or his ex-girlfriend, di ba? And then ang daming symbolism din dun sa color. Usually, di ba, children's books, they are usually illustrated with bright colors to illustrate reality. Pero dito, wispy yung style. And it helps connect to the fact na every one of us have these dreams na gusto nating maabot. Halimbawa, yung paggamit ng gray dun sa daily life ni Kian na nararanasan niya yung poverty. But despite this, marami pa rin gamit ng blue and yellow na para mapakita yung life ni Kian as someone who is blooming with positivity. And di ba nga masasabi natin na class clown si Kian? And makikita yung extensive use ng yellow dun sa hospital and dun sa classroom. And another is yung bihira yung ginamit yung kulay na red. And makikita natin na because hindi siya masyadong normalize sa story, nakakagulat siya sa dulo. And alam ng bata kung ano yung ibig sabihin nun, kahit hindi sabihin na pinatay yung si Kian.
So for our second listener, we have Kyle.
Good evening, bosses Marga and Jalen.
Evening, Kyle.
For me, what stood out about the story was the writing style. Because most of the children's stories that I've read, they've tried to use flowery language or metaphors to try to protect children while discussing painful topics by softening the blow. The way the narrative was presented here did not pull any punches. All the facts are simply and concisely laid out. I think that this shows two things. First, it shows how the facts surrounding Kian's life and how it abruptly ended speak for themselves. There's no need to put any spin on what happened to make the point. When all the facts of who Kian was and what happened are presented honestly, the truth is self-evident. Second, I think it shows that the author believes that children are more than capable of emotionally processing the ugliness and barbarity of what happened, and that they can draw whatever lessons they have to draw from what happened on their own. I think that's also a good read for people who are even past childhood. Personally, as someone at 21, after reading the story, I felt a sense of shame. It made me realize that children are judging us and our society. And if even a child can plainly see that what happened is wrong, how could we allow something like this to happen in our own country? Thank you.
So our last listener for this segment is Nathan. Hi, Nathan.
Hi guys. So I find it interesting that it's published on social media, but looking at what the story is about, I guess it makes sense because the author wants to raise awareness, so to get it to as many people as possible. So putting the story online makes it much more accessible to the general public, and the bilingual text means foreigners can also read it to see what's going on in our country. Instagram has a lot of users, so it's easy for people to see the story even if they're just browsing. The story makes good use of Instagram because it's a picture book, with each page being a picture and a story. So I think the medium of Instagram actually enhances the story even. and each segment is standalone. So anyone browsing Instagram can start reading the story from any point. They can start from 1 out of 15 or from the very end, 15 out of 15, and still feel the full emotional impact when they finish reading all 15.
For our next segment, Marga.
Okay, so far we discussed the art style, writing style, and the platform used. Now let's move on to the use or role of literature in addressing and challenging political and economic inequities in our country. So for our first listener, Janina.
Hey guys, so looking back at the stories I have heard or read as a child, I have noticed how literature reflects both good and bad values of society. So by reflecting bad values, it allows us to correct and solve problems, right? So we really know how literature often presents what people think, say, and do in society. So makikita naman natin how literature literally showcases different types of our own reality. It records real life events in society, turns in secular activities into fiction, and presents them to society as a mirror in which people can examine their own images and make corrections when necessary. So, because we can see how literature greatly affects a younger generation and helps them understand what went wrong with their ancestors and how they corrected their mistakes. So, just like the book na si Kian, it reflects the sad and harsh reality of the Philippine police irresponsible use of their
Our
power.
final listener, Joey. Hi, Joey.
Hi, Andre and Marga. Same lang, halos same lang din yung thoughts ko kay Janina. So, I realized na literature really plays a vital role not only in helping people shape their political perceptions but to promote justice. Kasi if not for these materials, we won't have a huge idea about the social injustices that have happened in the past and are currently happening right now. Let us say, for example, the materials about martial law, about people power and such. So literature paved the way to preserve history, an event, an experience, and it will always affect how people view the past and the present. Like the way the book si Kian vividly tells his viewers the story of Kian de los Santos. It was in a light way to tell, but it has a way to let the future generation know about this injustice and abuse of power. So preserving these kinds of information into literature, nakakaapekto talaga sa pag-shape ng society. Like kung paano i-view ng masa yung particular situation or event ay nakadepende sa kung paano dineliver ng author yung story na yun. And that is a very significant role the literature has to play and is playing in our society.
I surely learned a lot from the thoughts and insights shared by listeners
Yes, very
today.
insightful.
Mm-mm.
Actually, I actually, since I read the story, may napansin
Mm-mm.
ako. So,
Ano yan?
in terms of storytelling, they have actually two versions, the the original Tagalog or Filipino text, and then the translated English version. So what I've noticed is that while both tell the same story, the one version would have added details. Well, hindi naman super nakakabago yung details na yun. Like, it won't drastically change the story naman. It's nice to see that there are added details to make the story more immersive. And then regarding dun sa nabanggit nga ng our first segment listeners, the people don't really give enough credit to our artists for giving such effort in their art styles and the insight, or rather yung kagalingan nila talaga in determining what style and what the stylistic choices and yung color combinations to bring out the story.
Mm-mm. Ako naman, I think literature really is an effective tool for spreading awareness and getting people engaged in addressing social injustices. Kasi di ba, ang literature, it does not only inform us, it evokes emotion. And I think by using stories, storytelling, we gain a deeper understanding of how much something affects a person's life and how much it makes them suffer, ganon. So, yung feeling of empathy and compassion that we get is, what really compels us to act and to do something about it. Yun lang naman.
Exactly, Marga. Ayun na nga since I considered storytelling as a mirror of our reality, since we or the writers actually use the events happening around them as their inspiration or their muse. So it's easier for us to empathize with what's happening with the characters in the story, whether it be fiction or real life, since as humans we learn or we have that instinct to share, or rather the overused term here is empathize with the character of the story.
Tama. So yeah, it has been a very interesting discussion with our listeners.
Thank you guys for
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for participating with our literature podcast for today.
Mm-mm.
So again, my name is Andre.
And I am Marga.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.